How's it going? I don't know. Is the intro too loud? This is the Poor Sports Podcast. We got no Alex today. In fact, no Alex this week at all. Um, so yeah, if you're here for Alex, he's coming back. It'll probably be next week. He's just got a bunch of scheduling conflicts, and I got a bunch of scheduling conflicts. We're busy guys. I had a weird week of comedy. I've had like an odd stretch of comedy. I've done a lot of bombing, as I've promised to do on this podcast. I've had a lot of bombing, and it all culminated in last Tuesday. I'm doing this comedy voice competition, and after the show, so the comedy voice competition, I'm not in it. I'm hosting it, which is the best way to do a competition, by the way. And I don't have to even be a coach in this competition, which is very nice because I don't have to reject people that I'm later going to try to get to book me on shows. It's the perfect spot. I host, I go bomb my set, which is what I've been doing every week, bombing my set. And then I get to make fun of other people if they bomb, as though I didn't also bomb myself. And we had a lady. So the last night, a lot of the coaches' teams were pretty full. And this lady, after the show, I want you to, in your mind, just imagine. I'm going to tell you the answer, but I want you to, in your mind, imagine the least palatable demographic to be coming up and giving you this advice or criticism as a show, as a collective show. The four of us that make up the coaches and me, the host. So 3 coaches, me, the host. We get done with the competition, and this lady comes up to us angrily and says, "You guys left a lot of people of color off of this lineup." Very angry at us. And now I want you to imagine all the characteristics. I'm giving you a moment. I'm vamping for you to tell me who the most annoying possible person to be giving us this feedback would be. Obviously, it's a white person. I think I might have already said a woman. It's obviously a white woman. Give me some characteristics. Give me some traits. Because this was not only a white woman, but a white woman with white woman dreadlocks telling us that we were, I don't know, not supportive of people of color on this show, as she's doing what I imagine many people who share her political views and her views on that show would call cultural appropriation. All, by the way, while her black husband or boyfriend was telling us that it was a great show and he really enjoyed it. So, and yeah, I did a wild show in Bremerton, Washington, which is like a Navy town if you're not from the area. I got heckled by some people. I had them under control. They'd been heckling the whole show. Had them under control for 30 minutes, and then I let them in. Gave them a crack. Just a crack to as like the water finding the path of least resistance. I gave him just a little crack to get in and talk to me, and it was terrible. And then last night, I actually had a pretty decent show. Some new material. Oh, no, I did Bickerson's Brewhouse on Saturday, by the way, which come on out November 23rd. That's our next one. Adam Tiller's headlining. Quinn Fitzgerald is featuring, and a buddy of mine is another buddy of mine is hosting. Going to be a great show. Tickets will be available shortly. I'll have a link available on my website for that. So Bickerson's Brewhouse was fun. By the way, if you're in the Renton area, go to Bickerson's Brewhouse. They have an amazing fresh hop IPA on right now. I can't remember the name, but it's number 10 on their lineup. Just one of the best fresh hop IPAs I've had the whole season. And then last night I did the Make Me Famous show at Tacoma Comedy Club, which was great. A lot of great comics, did well. It did break up. I had a busy weekend. I smoked 2 briskets for a family dinner, and then immediately we finished dinner and I just immediately abandoned my family. We had like 16 people over. But a great Seattle sports weekend overall. Everything you wanted as a Seattle sports fan, because the Seahawks beat the Falcons so bad we got to see Michael Penix's debut. That was one thing that happened. We got to see 3 kind of former friends turned quasi-enemies perform in a way. We'll talk about that in a little bit also. And then I think baseball has gotten, I mean, it's so chalky, it's so boring. This is the least for me, I'm like something of a baseball purist, probably an annoying baseball purist. This is a very annoying and boring World Series matchup. So we can talk about that briefly, but I first want to talk about this Seahawks Falcons game, and let's get this box score up here real quick. I've also, by the way, I'd love to hear your input on the new intro song, because I had set it up earlier because I'd like it to be a video. And man, is it jarring? It was jarring that time. It was jarring for me. Was it jarring for you? Because it was jarring for me. I want to try to make this. Give me a moment. I'm realizing also, like, we don't have to be breakneck speed, breakneck pace all the time on this. So the Seahawks beat the Falcons in Atlanta, by the way, a good Falcons team. The Seahawks have traveled well since it became a narrative that West Coast teams struggle on the East Coast. The Seahawks have bucked that trend by quite a bit. I would imagine is there like West Coast teams, Eastern time zone, NFL? I'm going to see if there's a record available, but I would imagine that the Seahawks, who are like well over 500, like have played extremely well in those circumstances, have probably make up the whole margin or completely buck the margin. So they go to Atlanta, and it's no different. They're playing at 10 a.m. their body clock. Last weekend I was talking about how I didn't give a shit about the 9 a.m. start for the Huskies, because as a dad, you lose sympathy for that kind of thing. You're like, I'm going to be up at that time no matter what. These kids refuse to sleep in, okay? And so yeah, to me, this seems like a surmountable thing, and the Seahawks have done a very good job of surmounting it, and they've carried over the tradition of Pete Carroll, where they travel out early and they are successful in that way. And they prevailed. They beat Atlanta, and I thought they played the most complete Seahawks game of the year. Everything that you want out of this team. The offense looked pretty good. The defense looked very good. I will say I don't actually agree with that in the first half. In fact, at one point, the announcers, I think it was 10-7, and they were like, this feels like Atlanta's winning by a touchdown. And I agreed, because in the first half, Atlanta was just absolutely running the ball at will against the Seahawks. And they ran the ball well the whole game. I mean, they had 155 rushing yards. Bijan Robinson crosses 100 yards and scores a touchdown. Tyler Algier has another 36 yards on 5 carries, one being a 24-yard carry. And in the beginning of the game, it looked like Kirk Cousins was just going to slice and dice him also. Drake London seemed unstoppable. And it was a frustrating first half that ends on the Geno Smith touchdown pass to DK Metcalf that really seemed to, whatever you believe about momentum. And I'm a momentum skeptic. I'll tell you that about me. I'm a momentum skeptic. I don't believe in momentum in the way that I think a lot of fans do, but what I will say is to go into halftime with a 2-score lead, and I think what ended up being the Seahawks' biggest offensive play of the game. Is that right? No, that was the pass from Jackson Smith and Jigba. Hold on, let's get the actual length of the 31 yards to DK at the half with 4 seconds left. Even if it wasn't the biggest play of the game, even if I don't believe in momentum, it was good to go into the half, especially with Atlanta getting the ball back up 2 scores. I know there's going to be frustration with DK Metcalf, and there's even been some criticism from this game. And my conversation with Andrew Rivers, I didn't push back on him incredibly hard about my feelings and opinions on DK Metcalf and whether the Seahawks should trade him. What I will say is, this is what you're going to get. I don't think DK Metcalf is going to evolve into a different player. Does anyone else? I mean, does anyone disagree with that? I think at this point he's not a natural hands catcher. Is like a big criticism of him. He's probably not going to get that much better. He's probably never. I've said this a bunch. He's probably never going to be a guy that runs super crisp routes, precise routes. He's never going to be a technician. He's a guy who physically dominates the game. And for me, that's what makes him scary to extend. And regardless of yes, he's got another year on his contract. If I'm his agent, I'm having him hold out next offseason if the Seahawks have not extended him. So from my perspective, this is functionally the last year that DK Metcalf is playing on this contract. The Seahawks can play hardball, whatever. And I know this is like we're going to talk about too much this year. We're going to talk about extending Geno Smith, and if Geno Smith is the guy. Too much this year. We're going to talk about DK Metcalf. But I think like whenever you consider DK Metcalf and what the Seahawks should do with him, I think you should do it with the idea that this is as good as it's going to get. Which is very good, by the way. He is on a pace that matches his second year, which is the most yards he's ever gained in a year. Maybe he doesn't quite match it, but at least approaches it. He's on pace for, I want to say, 1,400 yards. And he's catching touchdowns, and he's a dominant force in the game. There's no doubt about that. He is a dominant force in the game. Does he have flaws? Does he have things that are annoying? Absolutely. Has his most annoying and arguably most detrimental flaw kind of been, suppressed a bit this year? The stupid penalties he would get, the personal foul penalties. My opinion, yes. That doesn't seem to, for some people, that hasn't been enough. Some people have remained frustrated with DK Metcalf. I think the good outweighs the bad right now, I would say. And what I would caution, though, is that as he loses speed and as he loses athleticism, that could change very quickly. And I mean, I think you got to see, it was kind of nice to see Geno Smith directly juxtaposed to Kirk Cousins, because I'm a big Kirk Cousins fan. Geno Smith pretty obviously outplayed him, and you got to see just the athletic gifts that make Geno Smith, in my opinion, better. Which, I don't know. All things being equal, do I take Kirk Cousins? Do I take Geno Smith? I think it's getting closer to a toss-up for me. Like I said, I'm a big Kirk Cousins fan, but it's hard to argue with the results. And then when you get to see these two guys playing in the same environment, the teams are built somewhat similarly, and you see just Geno Smith, his arm pops off the screen in comparison. I think it's hard to argue that Kirk Cousins is a better quarterback in 2024 than Geno Smith. Yeah, Kenneth Walker played on his birthday. He made that catch he made, by the way, the touchdown catch he made was, there was a lot of praise of that being a catch that only receivers make. I don't even think receivers make that catch most of the time. That was a tremendous catch, and it was a good reminder that Kenneth Walker can be a factor in the passing game. Him and Zach Charbonnet can both be a factor in the passing game. And, and then obviously the Seahawks, they get 2 interceptions of Kirk Cousins. What they sacked him 3 times. Draymond Jones was like a presence in the backfield. Boye Mafe was pretty dominant, it felt like, throughout the game. The front line looked great. And in the way, I think that the Seahawks defense looks a lot different from the Pete Carroll defenses. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to make a comparison. It's going to sound like I'm saying these defenses are similar. They are not similar. But the way that they are similar is that this whole shit, this pressure that the Seahawks have been getting all year has been without turnovers. And that's what pressure causes. That's what when the Seahawks created pressure under Pete Carroll, the ideal outcome was turnovers. The Seahawks had a bunch of turnovers, and they had 2 more today. I don't know what this is. Kofi Kortang is a Lions fan. We're not going to talk about the Lions really today, but they were. Amon-Ra St. Brown. First off, I do have on my fantasy team. He might be one of my favorite receivers in the NFL. Really fun to watch that dude run routes and just absolutely tear up defenses. That was a bunch of lions, I assume, for those emojis. I don't know. I'm a boomer. I like being able to say I'm a boomer when I'm like very obviously not actually a boomer, but boomer has just become an ageist slur that we can all use. Having Byron Murphy back seemed to make a difference. You got to hear Roy Robertson Harris's name a couple times. Like, again, like I said last week, I think the Seahawks, I don't think that was an insignificant move for them. I don't think that was a move that they took as just like a depth add. I think that was a dude they really had their eye on and really valued. So, and then you saw Boye Mafe on that final, the final turnover, the Kirk Cousins fumble, the scoop and score was, that was a play that I will say, I don't think that there was any conversation about it, but I was like, this looks a little bit like the kind of thing you might see a cheap ticky-tack penalty on. And then Kirk Cousins comes out with a bloody nose, and Mafe's been great when he's been healthy. I think Mafe gives me some faith that, and this might be a little bit, I guess, like morbid in a sports sense, but it seems like it's probably going to be time to move on from Uchenna Nwosu if the cap situation's right. Is there savings on Uchenna Nwosu next year? Because he just has not been able to stay healthy. And let's see, or is he a free agent after this year? I mean, Nwosu's has been effective. I guess he goes into 2026. Yeah, they can save $8 million cutting Nwosu last year. And when he's healthy, I think he's worth the money, but he's been, he's got a $21 million cap number next year. Tough to justify with the way his health has been. What do you get? $6.5 million if more cap room if you restructure him. I'm looking on a different tab than is on the screen, obviously. And then a post June 1st cut, you could save almost $15 million against the cap next year. I mean, the Seahawks are going to know a lot more about Nwosu's health than I will, but it does seem like if they have to move on from him, I think they're in better shape than they were a year ago. My feelings on Mafe are a little bit better than they were. And Draymond Jones was like a part of the defense. Oh, by the way, Laviska Shenault, I mean, he's got to be making D. Williams completely obsolete. He made plays in special. He made a great play in coverage on special teams, and then is like obviously an adequate return guy. And why do you have 2 specialists basically? I haven't looked at the snap counts. I'll look at them for later in the week, but Shenault doesn't seem to be getting a lot of snaps on offense. I don't think you need 2 return specialists at the very minimum. I don't think you need 1, but I certainly don't think you need 2. What else is there to say? We got to see Michael Penix make his debut. That was very exciting. Michael Penix might be my favorite player in the NFL. I have many arguments with people still to this day about whether or not Penix to the Falcons was a good pick. I think it was like genuinely a good pick. Was it what I would do in that circumstance? No. Was it a B- or higher, which is what I would say is on the good end of the spectrum? I think so. I'm a big Penix fan. How do you feel about former Seattle people? How bitter are you? How petty are you? How much anger are you still holding out for people like Russell Wilson, for people like Kalen DeBoer, for people like Steve Sarkisian? Because I think the overall like sentiment across Seattle is basically like everyone's kind of forgiven Russ. I think most people have probably forgotten that Steve Sarkisian was the Washington Huskies coach and kind of left under shitty circumstances. And the Kalen DeBoer wound is very fresh, but if you're like me, who is still mad at Sark, still mad at Kalen DeBoer, and is, kind of just wants to see Russ figure it out and coast into the Hall of Fame, like have a good enough remainder of his career to coast into the Hall of Fame, it's a great weekend for you. Because Mike Tomlin made the decision to start Russell Wilson despite Justin Fields leading to whatever degree you think he led the Pittsburgh Steelers to a 4-2 record. And by the way, what a kick-ass response that he had. Let me see if I can pull that up real quick. Mike Tomlin, they basically go, let's see if I can give me a quick one. Oh, come on. I should have got this before we came on. I'm gonna quickly see if we can find it on Twitter, and if not, basically he was asked like oh yeah, here we go. Hold on. Is this a video?
Decisions
Brandon Marshall.
to go with 3.
Hold on.
And I'm a Pittsburgh.
Hold on. I gotta show this on screen. What am I doing? What am I doing, folks? Brandon Marshall asking the question, by the way, which is wild. I think that's Brandon Marshall. I could be wrong. This will be embarrassing, and that lady with the white lady dreadlocks is going to have a lot to say about it if I'm wrong. But I think that's Brandon Marshall.
Your boldest decisions to go with 3. And I'm a Pittsburgh guy from East Liberty.
That's why I'm well compensated.
Fuck yeah, that was great. That was great. First off, it is like a brave move. Anytime you bench your quarterback, I think it's a brave move, pretty much. Especially a quarterback that's given you success. And that was kind of, when Russell Wilson got, when he got the starting job in Seattle, I thought it was brave is a way. I would have called it probably stupid. Oh no, I just got a message about my an ad that I'm running. From past guest Andrew Rivers. Now I'm going to be obsessed with this the whole time. So yeah, Mike Tomlin, baller fucking response. This dude made a ballsy decision and it paid off. They beat the Jets. The Jets are certainly not world beaters, but he's literally texting me, get off Twitter live. I should just give his phone number out because anyway. Yeah, I'm going to become obsessed with this ad until this ad that I apparently set up incorrectly until I get off of here. But yeah, how do you feel about Russell Wilson? I should put up a poll, I suppose, on Twitter. I'll put it up with this. How do you feel about Russ at this point? Do you want to see him succeed? Do you want to see him make it into the Hall of Fame? Do you think if he makes it into the Hall of Fame, he's going to go in as a Seahawk? It's obviously he's not going in as a Bronco. And I suppose if he wins the Super Bowl with the Steelers, he could consider going in with the Steelers. But this feels like it's only a win for the Seahawks if Russell Wilson makes it into the Hall of Fame. And he was on that trajectory, and he has hit the most significant obstacle I've ever heard of a player hitting, basically. He was, I think, from his draft class and surrounding draft classes was the number one guy in like the metrics that you can find that predict Hall of Fame candidacy, and nonetheless he is it seems like now the probability is that he will not be a Hall of Famer. So and I don't, again, I don't know if what your feelings are. I will say of Kalen DeBoer and of Steve Sarkisian, I'm still angry at Kalen DeBoer. I'd take Kalen DeBoer. If Kalen DeBoer said, I want to come back to Washington, sorry for what happened, sorry I left, I want to come back to Washington, I'll let him come back. I'll let him come back in a heartbeat, personally. I think he's going to be a great coach. I said this when he left. I think he's going to be one of the all-time great coaches. I think that Alabama, like we've talked about, and we're not the first people to talk about it, Alabama is a pressure cooker. They want a winner right away. They were pissed about Vanderbilt. I'm sure they're not happy about Tennessee, losing to Tennessee. And I mean, I don't think we are many more failures away from a fire Kalen DeBoer movement starting in Tuscaloosa. And when that happens, I think that the momentum in Alabama seems to grow. And it seems that, especially they went through a lot of coaches before Nick Saban. That's what we were talking about. There's a lot of pressure there. Nick Saban kept the boosters and the fan base at bay. Kalen DeBoer is doing a bad job of that so far. I will say this. I think Ryan Grubb in Seattle is having as good of a start to his NFL career as you could ask for. Very happy with what he's done with the Seahawks offense. I am curious how much of if Ryan Grubb had stayed at Alabama with Kalen DeBoer, what would the differences be? How much of what he was doing at Washington had he handed off the responsibilities to a guy that I think is like an offensive guru? I think DeBoer is also obviously a very good play caller and a very good play designer and an offensive guru in his own right. But is he as good as did the student become the teacher at some point? That's another thing I'm worried about, by the way. I don't think that Ryan Grubb's going to be in Seattle much longer. If it's not next year, I think it'll be the year after, probably, if the Seahawks keep having success, that he is a high-ranking head coaching candidate. And that dude's, I think, 49 or 50 years old. He better take that job. And that was the only thing that was sad about him becoming the offensive coordinator in Seattle, is that it seems like it's going to be very hard for him to, if the Mike Macdonald era doesn't work, become the head coach of the Seahawks. And I'm a huge Ryan Grubb fan. And then, by the way, Sark lost to Georgia. The SEC is just going to keep beating up on itself. It's a maybe no better year for a big playoff, an expanded playoff. With 2 losses, is Kalen DeBoer a playoff team? I think it's probable that what he's done that's kind of slightly benefited him, and I'm willing to walk back on this logic because I'm coming up with this right now, is because he's a 2-loss team, and I think both losses came to SEC teams. Tennessee's an SEC team, right? Is that right? Tennessee, SEC. No, Secretary of State. What the fuck are we? Google sometimes does not know. Okay, yeah, they are SEC. It seems like it would make sense. Tennessee is especially if you're from the North, Tennessee feels like it's like an example, an offensive example you would give for a southern state. Yeah. So what that might mean is that they don't go lose a third game in the conference championship, which might actually benefit Alabama to not have lost a third game. It might improve their chances of being in the playoff to not play in the SEC championship game. And then, Texas loses to Georgia. The top of the NCAA rankings are crazy right now. Everybody's playing each other, and Oregon's number 1 now, which is infuriating. But I think that we're going to see at some point this year, it's probable to me that we will see a 1-loss Georgia team overtake an undefeated Oregon team, which will be funny to me, maybe only. But who else? What else we got? Oh, so two last things. I have a funny. I don't know if it's funny. I have a funny video to show, and then also we can get into the. Is there a worse Major League Baseball playoff scenario based on the 4 teams that were left in your mind? The Yankees have won, I think, 26 World Series. The Dodgers won the 2020 World Series. They've been spending and acquiring the top free agents every offseason. I cannot think of a more boring outcome, a more boring matchup. Cleveland, I also think it's hilarious that the Mets have been made into a Cinderella story. I think that's very funny. I think that's obviously like it's simple-minded, just that we don't think of the Mets as a power, but they, had the biggest payroll in baseball. Still, for me, Mets Guardians was the only compelling matchup to me at all. The Dodgers Yankees, like, I know that's good for baseball, maybe, because a lot of people probably like those teams. I'm so fucking sick about those teams. And it's not just because the Mariners are a mid-market team and because they don't field a large payroll. It's not just because of that. It's just like what I've always valued in baseball, or at least in the last, since like Moneyball came out and I cared about that kind of stuff, is teams that are doing something that is like unique and compelling and interesting. All the Yankees and Dodgers are doing is just going out and buying the free agents that are at the top of the free agent list and figuring out a way to put the best players in the world in the same lineup as the other best players in the world. Instead of finding diamonds in the rough, they're finding the biggest diamond in a pile of diamonds because they got a lot of diamonds. That's not interesting to me. But I do have, so yeah, I mean, I don't want to belabor it because I don't actually really care at all, to be honest with you, about that World Series. I don't know if I will watch a single game of that World Series. I have realized, as I've started to tell people, or I haven't told, not started to tell people. In my life, I've been asked, what's your favorite sport? And for years, I would defend baseball as, sure, it's long, sure, it's whatever, but it's my favorite sport to watch. And it's to take nothing away from the actual, like, at the game experience, in stadium experience. I think football is my favorite sport now. It's not even close. It's easier to consume, obviously, because there's one game a week for 18 weeks and then the playoffs and the Super Bowl. But it's interesting because, and I'm past guest David Ardsma has been going against this on social media. So I think baseball needs a salary cap. But it's not just that baseball needs a salary cap. We don't just need the Dodgers to stop spending $1 billion every offseason. The Yankees, Dodgers, and Mets, we don't need them to not have $300 million payrolls. That's not all that we need. We also need a minimum salary spend. And what they do in the NFL, I think, is it's not only a minimum salary spend, but it's also like a 3 or 5 year rolling. You have to spend a certain percentage, and it's a high percentage. It's like 99% of your available cap space has to be spent on payroll, because there were teams a couple of years ago. I mean, a couple now. I'm an old man, a boomer, as I previously stated, but years ago, it'd be like the Tampa Bay Bucks would have like $75 million in cap space and just never spend it. Just let it fucking ride and, just field a team that sucked full of low-paid players. And presumably just pocket the rest of that money. Well, football stopped that. The last collective bargaining agreement, I believe, is when it happened. They stopped that. And that's what baseball should do the same thing. And the last thing I want to be clear is for a salary cap to lead to that money leaving the players' pockets and going into the owners' pockets. That's not what I want. I would love it if ticket prices got cheaper. If that's the secondary byproduct, that's great. And I would love it if the league was a little more competitive for mid-range teams. And it's shifted a lot in recent years. David Ardsma, friend of the podcast. I love the guy. By the way, I forgot to put this banner up here. We have a voicemail line, 5303-SPORTS /5303-776787, 5303-SPORTS. Leave us a voicemail. I'll play them probably like the end of the week. Leave a text. I'm happy to read those also. Maybe I won't read yours, by the way, so don't feel bad if I don't read it or listen to it, but keep sending them because eventually you'll get on. He pointed out that Major League Baseball had 16 unique teams in the World Series in the last 15 years. And also asked, like, how does that compare to other sports? And I went back because I'm fucking on the spectrum. I went back and I don't think I'm on the spectrum, by the way. I don't know where like the comedy in the sports, where the line is sometimes. But I went back and checked. Basketball's got problems. There's 12 teams in the last 15 years have been in an NBA Finals. Football's got 16. Baseball has baseball has 16. Football has 18. But it's not really. Baseball's problem does not exist in the last 15 years. It exists in the like very recent years, where the Dodgers decided luxury tax be damned. Draft picks be damned. Those things were supposed to be deterrents. Then they like broke international spending and they broke the draft. And the Dodgers have tested the limits and constraints of Major League Baseball's collective bargaining agreement. And that's the period. It's the last 5 years that are the period. And it's the projection of the next 10 years because the Dodgers have Shohei Ohtani for the next 10 years, theoretically. And they have other players signed a very long contracts. It's not just those years. And yeah, they're going to be able to keep going out and spending. There's already revenue sharing in baseball. So I don't know how socialist you can make a sport that's probably mostly consumed by like 75-year-old conservatives, but it's to make it competitive. I think you need a minimum salary and a maximum salary cap. And so the last thing is Deshaun Watson. I don't want to laugh at it, but Deshaun Watson he tore his Achilles or ruptured his Achilles on Sunday, and Cleveland fans were booing him as he left the field. And this has created like a cottage industry of takes on this, because is it in bad taste to boo a guy that got injured playing a sport you love? Yeah. Is Deshaun Watson a guy that's deserving of a bunch of empathy? Obviously not. Is there hypocrisy abound on both sides of this argument? Absolutely. But what we do have is, and I have not watched it yet, I watched like the first couple seconds, and we're going to watch it together, of Jameis Winston reacting to people booing Deshaun Watson. And to be clear, Deshaun Watson is going to be a guy that's like, he's never going to live down. I understand how players can compartmentalize. It's like when comedians get in trouble for saying racist things, especially like, oh man, I just saw the clip the other day of Dave Chappelle talking about Michael Richards. But when it's something that's not in their act, it's a mistake that they made on stage and a miscalculation. And comedians don't share the same vitriol for that comedian as fans of comedy do. Or more accurately, most likely, it's as critics of comedy do. I understand why players get the back of other players. I understand that like Jameis Winston's probably been friends with Deshaun Watson since before they played together in Cleveland. He's probably very good friends with him now. He's not rooting against the guy. There was a lot of players voicing their support for Deshaun Watson when he first signed with, or was traded to and signed his big extension with Cleveland. Also, by the way, from the player's perspective, there's a lot of consternation about this guaranteed contract, as though any player in the league would not also accept a fully guaranteed contract. But let's watch this Jameis Winston clip together. For the first time. I have not seen it prior to this, and I think you can hear the audio, and if not, I'm just going to enjoy it without you, and you're going to watch me be silent. Oh, shit, my camera went out. Hold on. I could see the battery dying. Now, here we go. Hold on. We have another solution. I could see the battery dying, and I knew there was a potential problem. This is just the laptop webcam. You don't care. You don't care about any of this. Let's watch this. By the way, Jameis Winston is like morphing into a Cam Newton type figure. He's getting a little more, the dress is getting a little more fun. Here we go.
And I do not want the treatment that Deshaun Watson has received from these passionate fans. I know you love this game. When I first got here, I knew these were some amazing fans. But Deshaun was treated badly. And now he has to overcome another obstacle. So I'm going to support him. I'm going to lift him up. And I'm going to be there for him. Because I see the way he fights. I see the way that he works. And I know who he is as a person and as an NFL quarterback. And that's all I have to say to address him. I'm sending up my prayers. I already prayed for his leg, and I will continue.
Oh, man, that's great. That's good stuff. The praying for his leg is nice. That's fun. It's the thing about it is like you can't. No one's ever going to give Deshaun Watson the benefit of the doubt. It's over. He lost that. That privilege. So, but man, is Jameis Winston a cartoon? Jameis Winston there almost looks like he's doing an impression of Jameis Winston there. And praying for his leg is just a fuck. I've already prayed for his leg. It's such a funny sentence. All right. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Deshaun Watson has been playing badly. I think there's like a lot of justifiable criticism of the Cleveland fans for only turning on Deshaun Watson once he started playing bad. But I don't think that represents the entire fan base. I don't even know if it represents the plurality of the fan base. But what I will say is it represents some of the fan base, and there's going to be hypocrisy on all sides. Yeah. I am not happy that Deshaun Watson tore his Achilles, but I'm also not under some false impression that he has served his time and we can all move on. The dude was rewarded with a $250 million fully guaranteed contract after allegedly assaulting several women. So it's not, he's not a sympathetic figure in this. All right. By the way, can you please subscribe on YouTube and Spotify, leave a review and a rating. Come see me do stand-up. I'll be at the Voice competition tomorrow, and then I'm opening for Andrew Rivers, last week's guest, on Friday at Ricardo's in Lacey, Washington. Come out to that. And, yeah. Come track me down. I posted on Instagram. I'll post it on Twitter also. I'm all over Washington State for the rest of the year. And, just fucking literally all of Western Washington, like almost, there's almost no city that I'm not going to. It's insane. So please do that. And also leave us a voicemail or a text at 5303-SPORTS, which is 530-377-6787, which is running along the bottom, by the way. And watch my special, Do Not Shake. Thank you for listening to those who did, and tell your friends that they should also listen. All right. Bye, everybody.